Welcome back to What Makes You Tick. I'm Stephen Bradshaw, and the reason I created this podcast is to help you find inspiration from the stories and experiences of others. What Makes You Tick is a vehicle for people to share their life's knowledge, their passions and experiences with you. I get energy and inspiration from talking to people, and my goal through this platform is to help you learn from others and use this knowledge to inform your lives.
Already, but within a nanosecond, my whole life changed, and I knew instantly. As soon as I hit the hoarding, bang, there was just like you said, you and me have both played rugby, we've been involved in big knocks, but there was like a stun, and basically, I describe it as fire across the top of my shoulders, just from my left shoulder right across my body, and it just seared right down my chest and my back to my hips, to the point where as I hit the hoarding and then came back, I landed on my bum. And as I landed on my bum, then that searing heat or fire came right down through my legs.
Phillip Caldwell is a big character with a big heart whose lust for life was tested back in July 2020. Waking up the morning of the 13th of July, little did he know that his life, as he had come to know, would change forever. Philly severed his spinal cord and was faced with the biggest challenge of his life. He sits with me and opens up wholeheartedly about the accident, his mental state at the time, the power of friendship, and how he found, through the knowledge of battling depression, he was able to find the courage to fight more than ever. Before you listen to this conversation, wherever you are, take a moment to look at your surroundings. Take a moment to appreciate whatever is good in your life, and take a moment for yourself. We can get distracted by the hustle and bustle of life, and before we know it, it's a week, a month, a year, it's all passed us by. So today I challenge you to take a moment to reset, refocus, and appreciate what is in your life today, because who knows what tomorrow has in store. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to What Makes You Tick. This week I have a fascinating character, not only on a rugby pitch, but off it as well. His name is Philly Caldwell, and myself and Philly go back years when I played rugby at underage. Philly was with Barnhall, and we used to play against each other many, many times in underage, and we happened to both play with St. Mary's. But Philip, fair play to you. Welcome to What Makes You Tick. How have you been?
I'm not too bad. And yourself, Steve? I'm kicking on. It's been, as you say, when you're bringing me back through a couple of memories there of battles on the pitch, both against each other and with each other. So there were definitely fun times.
Well, I could never catch you, you see. If you ever ran straight at me, I maybe had a chance. But you were too quick for me.
The nickname was Flipper, still is Flipper, and as the song goes, faster than lightning, nothing you see is faster than he. So I tried to live up to it for a little while, but in the last few years now, the wheels just haven't been as quick. But still loving that.
You know what? It's brilliant to have you on board. I think for people who don't know, the reason I asked to bring Philip on board, or Flipper on board, or Philly on board, or whatever we want to call him today, but the reason I asked Philly to come on board is to basically share with me some recent experiences that he's had, and not many people will know this, and I won't get into it. I'll let Philly, you can tell the story, but I think what has inspired me and What Makes You Tick is all about people who inspire me or motivate me or get me to kind of look at myself in different ways. And I think from conversations with people who do things like that, this platform allows others to listen and eavesdrop on the chat, to take, I suppose, nuggets of inspiration for themselves to apply to their own lives, right? So I think it will probably be good to start at, I suppose, what happened to you recently. Start at the start. You suffered from a bit of a setback there roughly 8 or 9 months ago, and maybe you might describe what's happened or what happened.
Yeah, well, as you said, it was a life-changing day. For me, basically, I was like everybody, just going through my COVID and looking for an outlet to just get out and get that bit of exercise and bit of communication with others. So I was called to arms by an old rugby coach who asked me to come down and play an over 35s rugby match, tag rugby, ironically, because I've played contact since I've been 10. But this was just a bit of tag, bit of a run around. As I said, a chance to meet some older friends, like our era, I'd actually say, Steve.
Thank
It
you.
wasn't quite the younger 20-year-olds running around, but
We still
yeah,
thought we could do it though, right?
exactly. That's and I was thinking I'm the hired in wheels for this night, so I was like, yeah, gunning for it, you know. So yeah, arrived down, met a couple of the guys as fate would have it. Lansdowne Rugby Club, the Lansdowne Legends, were playing on the pitch opposite me, and so I kind of looked at a few of the faces, and there was a bit of a pep in my step, thinking, Jesus, lads, I didn't get the call for that pitch, you know. And so I was with Terran Yor, who Ian Morgan was the captain of the team. So, like I said, got to know the guys for a couple of minutes before the game started. And again, faithfully, the last pair of tags were thrown to me. So I just threw on my tags, jogged out, and like I said, I look across. The guys were playing. I thought, I'll show these boys over here what they're missing, type thing. You know, I was kind of thinking, I want to get on the ball and just get into this game. And literally, I'd say the game was about 60 seconds old. The ball was fed to me, a couple of little jigs, passed the ball to someone, received it back, and then just went by a guy in full tilt to get to the try line and scored the try. So we went 1-0 up, and literally nanoseconds after that, looked up and there was a hoarding coming towards me, and there was just no way to stop before I completely just collided head first with the hoarding. And when I've used nanosecond already, but within a nanosecond, my whole life changed, and I knew instantly as soon as I hit the hoarding, bang, there was just a, like you said, you and me have both played rugby, we've been involved in big knocks, but there was like a stun, and basically I describe it as fire across the top of my shoulders, just from my left shoulder right across my body, and it just seared right down my chest and my back to my hips, to the point where as I hit the hoarding and then came back, I landed on my bum. And as I landed on my bum, then that searing heat or fire came right down through my legs. And I had a half a second to make a decision, you know, because I knew this was serious, but I'm completely coherent for it all. Do I stand up or do I lie down? And I said, just lie down. So I lay back, and as my head hit the ground, my feet, just from that hip right down to my toes, I knew I was lying, but my feet felt like they just elevated up into the sky, and then I'm just like, oh my God, I can't feel anything. And that was probably the scariest moment in it. Knowing that I was very coherent, like there was no, you know, I wasn't concussed, I wasn't out, or I was just like, well, maybe I was slightly concussed, but I was very much back in that moment thinking, oh my God, this is life changing. I'm going to use the word life change. I knew instantly I can't feel my legs, and I was screaming out. And I called out again on the fateful night. A lot of things went my way. There was College of Surgeons were playing against Lansdowne, so there was a couple of doctors on there, and they made phone calls straight away. They were at me, and for 30 minutes we were at pitch side, and they just hold me in the right position, talking away to me, and that was all fine. But basically, I got fast track to go straight to the Mater, which is the number one spinal unit in the country. And I know as you've had one of your mates was on, and he was there as well in the
Yeah, Ferg.
so
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So
So tell me when you hit the ground and you felt like your legs were elevating up, what happened next?
oh, I mean, sorry, I'm getting a little bit emotional here, but it was no, it was a feeling. No, not my legs. Anything but my legs, and that was just good. As you say, we introduced here with a bit of a slag, and
Yeah.
Philly being fast, Philly being quick, and that all went through my head. Not my legs, anything but my legs, which is it's funny in hindsight, it's not that big a deal. Along this journey, I've met some amazing people, and we'll get into that. But along this journey, at that moment in time, my legs seemed like the most important thing to me because that's what I associated myself with in sport and stuff like that, and been able to do things. I heard your friend saying as well. He thought about would he be able to walk his daughter up the aisle, and his daughter was only 7. Like those type of weird things go through your head. I'm thinking to myself, and it's funny because I give one small anecdote. I always thought, when will the pace go? So, I have this of, will I get a bit slower? And
yeah.
all my whole life has been, when will I retire? When I go round a guy and I can't, and somebody hauls me in, and catches up with me, and then the lads are all slagging me because I'm waffling that I'm quick. I used to think, when will that go? And for me, bang, it happened in a day. Do you know what I mean? So that was kind of ironic, but yeah, no, I'm that was my initial thinking. Just, this is serious. But again, I had a coping mechanism. I've started writing a little bit about what's gone on. Like I said, I've got a laptop now, and as I said to you, my hands I did the C5 joint of my spinal, so I didn't have a rupture. I had a bleed into my spinal cord, which again is why I was extremely lucky, because the care that I got and basically the attention I got, which put me straight into the matter, within 3 hours, they were pumping me full of the highest powered steroids to stop this bleed into my neck. Now, had I gone to Tala or somewhere else and then had to the way the brain works, your brain sends a message down to your spinal cord, and then your spinal cord fires off an electric pulse to whatever part of your body you want to move.
Yeah.
And while this bleed is going into your spinal cord, you're there's thousands of wires and you're blocking these signals, So the quicker you can get that bleed to stop, the quicker you can see the damage and look to, which is where I am now, try and repair all those connections. So all those connections have been damaged on the day. You have to retrain yourself to try and get them to function back to where they were. And for me, as I'm talking to you now, I'm sort of holding my hands. My hands are the most affected part of where my injury was. So they're the last thing to sort of come back. So I have to work really hard, like fine motor neuron. That's why typing and stuff like that it takes me a long time, but it's very important to keep, because the message is there's no reason. Well, you don't know. You know up to about 18 months you can get recovery back. But with hard work, you can retrain them. And there's no doubt about it. The more repetition, you can definitely retrain parts of this. Like I've gone from not being able to even a flicker of my index finger, and whoa, that story. So I'm jumping around a bit here, but there's quite a bit to tell.
There's a lot to tell, But tell it whatever way it comes natural to you. Man.
Yeah. So I suppose, so when I was lying in the bed, so basically, like I said, we had a week of heavy drugs, and that sends you a little bit delirious and stuff like that. So another thing I have to say, well, like, what a staff, the Mater Hospital, what those people do, the nurses in there, they make an extremely abnormal, not normal situation feel as normal as it can. So if I can stress you, I'm lying in that bed now, and my only way of contacting is to blow on a what would you call it? Sort of like a light. I'd have to blow with my mouth to send off a sensor, and that would bring the nurse into me. So you're lying there's a long time to think about what's going on. But they come in and they tend to your absolute every need, and they don't make it like they're an extension of you for that period, and I had great connection with them, because my girlfriend was very quick to get me up on learning how to use Hey Siri and stuff like that, so I could talk. So I'd make connections. Like there was a couple of Indian nurses, and they'd come in to give me my morning wash, and we'd put on Indian music, because she's got a long, hard day, and but I'd kind of, the essence of me came out. I wanted to get to know, because I felt they were really on this journey with me, especially when I couldn't do anything. And there was a lady that would come in, and once a week she'd sort of give you sort of like she'd bring in, or I had some creams and she'd bring in give you like a head massage and exfoliate your skin and stuff, just things that would really pep you up for that time. You just felt fresh, you felt a bit more normal. And that is just, that's a small part of your recovery, but it's such a big part of getting in the right headspace to be able to tackle what you're going to have to tackle. So it took me, you've got the first week where I'm told I just got to breathe, and I'm in HDU, and I've got to breathe to help get oxygenated blood down to my body to help repair this. So
what does HDU mean?
Sorry, the high dependency unit.
Okay.
So I was in the high dependency unit where they're monitoring you, like literally every 20 minutes somebody's in just to check your vitals and all that sort of stuff. And we're trying to get, but here's where the rugby came into me. I treated it like a game. There's like a challenge to try and make the team. Like the numbers had to be at this level. And I was told, and it's weird because I tuned in to, like, I'm sure everybody deals with it differently. I tuned in to what the doctors were saying. I wanted to know, all right, okay, oxygenated blood, right? How is this processed? And they were only too happy just to fill you. Now, towards the end of it, they're trying to tell you to calm down, and I had to take sleeping tablets to knock me out.
Yeah.
You can only.
But it's interesting, isn't it? How your attitude had defaulted back into the type of attitude you would have had, say, if you were training or if you were up against an obstacle, right? But I'm sure there were moments at the start where it was like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
What the hell is going to, how am I going to get through this? How did you kind of nearly take stock of what had happened and then aim to formulate a plan to move forward?
Okay, so I'll answer that firstly. One of the biggest things I've learned in the last 8 months, it's like a coin. You can look at a coin, you can look at the heads or the tails of it. We can look at any single situation. Anyway, whatever we decide to focus our mind on is what you're going to get out of it. Is your perception of that scenario that you are in. So for me, I sat down with a good mate of mine, Steve McGyver, came in after about a week when I sort of settled down. And I now look at reframing things. So how I reframed this was, it was the biggest challenge I'd ever been set, but I framed it as a physical challenge. So I said to myself, this is a physical challenge. And I said, you are physically strong. You're physically in good shape. So let's just set this up and do whatever we can physically. So the mental aspect was another part to sort of deal with. But what can I do physically? So what does that mean? That meant that when the physiotherapist came into my room, and they're doing a couple of sessions with me, I was 110% in on. I started giving them names. I said, "You're my Johnny Sexton. You're coming in. We're going to do this," and they bought into that. They bought into that. I bought back into it. I'm sure they were laughing at me, thinking your man's half tapped, but they bought into it. And like, I remember. I remember having to give. To do 10 reps or something. I'm screaming, this one's for a lad I played rugby with. Let's say it was Andy Tal. This one's for Vinny, whatever I have to do to get it out. And this was only lifting my arm or making a twitch and lifting, but they saw in me that I was coming to work, and and we just fed off each other. Like I'll tell you, I was 3 months in the Manor before I went to what I call the NRH is like the Leinster Academy. If you get me, it's completely bona fide. They break it down into your specialized physiotherapists, and the physiotherapists were brilliant in the matter as well. But there's only so much they can do with you at the beginning. You have to repair a little bit before you can really get to nuts and bolts. So before I left the matter, I had started to take their edges. I'd started to take my first steps. Now I
Wow.
remember like
Wow. Like it actually,
it was only like 4 or 5 steps, but I look at them now, and that kind of inspired just, but it was solely driven to that, and I was very lucky. I've said this to you as well. There was a huge outpour from my family community, from the town that I live in, from everyone I've ever played rugby with. They all just came out. So I said to you, it was kind of surreal, but it was a little bit like being at your own wake. These people were sending me, I actually have to stop doing the WhatsApp because remember, I couldn't respond. So all these messages were coming into WhatsApp, and I'd had a tough training session or session in the bed, and basically then I'd see these messages and I want to respond to them to let them know I'm doing so well. And at that point, when I say I'm doing so well, I was making such small movements, but they were huge. These movements that we're making were like, that twitch of the index finger. Well, if you can twitch that one, you can make a fist out of it. Do you know what I mean? So it was really, and that's where I've learned so much, as in what you need to do to get to an end goal can require 1,000 steps. Now I'm not great. I'm not great at mapping out the 1,000 steps, but I'm very good at being all in for whatever task I'm being told to do. So I put a lot of my faith just in whatever I'm being told to do. I'm going to give it 110%. And I was been asked to do, before the next session, have a couple of these reps done, and I was getting through it. And then they'd come back, and I was stronger than I was. And then we realized over the weekend, my best gains were coming on Mondays because they wouldn't let me do anything on Saturday, Sunday. So rest, as you know yourself,
yeah,
was a huge part
of the
of the
recovery.
recovery.
Wow.
So it's, there's a lot in that though. Like when I look back, and I was only saying this to you, the growth, I've grown more in the last 8 or 9 months, and we'll delve a bit further into it. But like when I look back, so if you were to ask me, what's the biggest thing you probably maybe learnt, regardless of what you've done to date so far? And I would say it's to do with time. So I was always go, 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 go. Yeah, I was whatever I'm doing. Whereas this injury, I can't leave here. If I leave the house and I forget my jacket, it takes me 20 minutes to walk back towards that, or if it rains. So now I have to prepare at a slower pace for what I'm going to do during a day and map things out. And that's making me see the world from a slightly different perspective. So I still bring the same drive to a lot of what I do. I've also learned that I'm very passionate about whatever I take on. And that's part of, what people would have said about me. I haven't played in a good few clubs. He never shuts up. He's nappy. He's this, that. But I've learned that I'm passionate about what I do, and I want to actually add that value with that passion.
Yeah, I love that. I think a phrase that you kind of touched on a little bit there is like, with every challenge comes opportunity, right? And as Skyver said to you the week after, like, see this challenge as an opportunity. And we spoke last week, and one of the things that you had said to me, which I thought was fascinating, it's actually given me kind of chills now, is that maybe tell a story of you and your mum there in Dunleary a week or so ago, where you're sitting down together, if you wouldn't mind telling that, because that kind of frames, I suppose, the mindset you're in, and also the kind of a reflection on the journey that you're on. And
so I was back for a session in the NRH, and that's another beautiful part about this. I've got to spend that day. I've got 3 sessions, and I spend those 3 sessions with my mom. So it's kind of our day. We go out. I have a physio session, and then I'm over to, I do a bit of shopping in Glasgow, and then I've got a session generally in the NRH. But we were sat down. It was a lovely sunny day, and as people are starting, COVID lifting a little bit, and people are looking out, they're walking up and down the pier. And my mom was asking me, she was saying to me, "You're doing great," because I went quiet and I'm not usually quiet, you know. And she said, "You're doing great." And she was trying to, you know, thinking that maybe she needed to pep me up a bit, you know, because I can't do some of the things that I used to be able to do, you know. So I can't sprint the 100 meters and whatever. I can't jive now, but this slowing of the pace has got me to look things differently. I just turned around, looked a dead square in the eye and says, I think I'm as happy as I've been in the last 10 years. Right now, in this moment in time, you know, I'm growing each week. This is a tough challenge, and it is. And I've said this to you before. We talked a little bit about a mental health piece of it. I had a bit of a thing at the start in where I felt like, or I was going about it saying, I'm always good, I'm upbeat, I'm whatever, which for the majority of the time, given this injury, I have been upbeat, but only because people have helped me frame it in the right way. I've had unbelievable support from everybody, and I've had a good outlook on it. But I'm also allowed to have a bad day or a bad hour or whatever it was. And I think my mom thought I was having one of these bad little spirits. I said, no. I said, the sun's shining. I said, look at us. I said, we're out, we're connecting together with each other. And I'm not going to get back to the 100% of the person I was. But I said to her, and she just smiled. But I said, I think I'm going to be a better person than I was.
Brilliant.
And that's, so when you talk about the growth piece of it, I mean, I think that's incumbent on all of us now. One of the lessons I'd love to just get across to people is, it shouldn't take I'm a little bit annoyed at myself in that it's taken this injury for me to gain just this perspective. Yeah. So why did it have to take for me to actually start to open up and look? And because all of these things, I would have been able to change, you know, I'd have been still in the job I was in, but I could have taken a little bit of time to look to slow things down, to get a little bit more organized, to look at what can I do in, you know, people talk about the 1% a day. If you can just add a little bit on each time, and it doesn't have to be, but over the course of a year, those small little changes can make a big difference. So that's what I say. It's hard. And for me, that's hard because I'm not as good, as I said, at mapping it out. You know, I'm not as good at, I'm good at giving effort, but not as good at mapping it out.
But to your point about
yourself with those people.
But to your point about the 1%, you're living proof that the 1% a day actually helps you get to where you are, because your 1% was shaking that finger, you know, was moving that toe or was lifting that arm, and you were doing those 1% every day to the point where 8 months later, you're now in a position where I love on your Instagram, on the Phillip Caldwell Trust Instagram, everybody needs to get onto that. You're doing a hopscotch, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I thought, like, number one, like, that brought me back to my childhood, right? But also, it also made me kind of take for granted that I have what I have. And I was looking at you and I was real proud of you from a friend side of things to look at you, go, fuck it, fair play to him. He's fucking appreciating the things that we take for granted now. He's doing things that he probably would have never done a year or so ago, you know?
Yeah,
what was that moment like?
Yeah, and that's just, you know, the best part of it, if anyone does get to see that, the best part for me of that is at the very end of it, the last sort of clip of it, where I'm like, you know, I'm like that 5-year-old kid and I'm just high five and to go, look at me, I just did it. Do you know what I mean? and so again, I've been afforded a little bit of time as a result of this injury, you know. So I've been, you know, you can only do rehab for so much during the day. I've got 18 months to get this as far right as I can. So I've been listening to quite a few podcasts. Yourself is a great podcast, but a few other ones, a high performance ones that I would sort of relate to. And Johnny Wilkinson was on. He's a very intense man.
Yeah,
brilliant, very intense man. But if I could give you the one, so we talk about in the future, if you're future minded, that can lead to anxiety if you're thinking about the future. And I did it today. I hoped that today would flow as well as it was going to flow between the two of us. but there was a little bit of anxiety into me there, which is good. But there was a little bit of anxiety there in me, thinking, "Oh, what if you stumble or you don't come across, or you're lost for words?" So here's what I'll say: that's the anxiety. And then if you're looking back, then when you're looking back and stuff, you can be dwelling on stuff. But what he tried, live in the present moment. So what does that mean? Like, because I've heard this for 15 years. What does living in the present moment mean? And for Johnny Wilkinson, he calls it being all in every moment. So just if you can engage in whatever it is you're doing, that's you in the present moment. Right now, I'm in the present with talking with Steve, and I'm enjoying that. And I'm not thinking about, I did at the very start, thinking, oh, where are we going to go? I'm not. I'm actually in the present of living that moment. And then there was a great one from one of his good mates, is Clive Woodward, who says, you never lose. You either win or you learn. Mm-hmm. So here's one for you. Even if I fell flat on my snot tonight and I was brutal and you had to save me 15, 20 times, which would probably never happen because I never shut up, as your listeners can see now. But even if that was the case, if I'm big enough and man enough to go back and review it and sit down with you, I would learn from what I did well. I could have laid in the bed and felt sorry for myself and said, oh, I'll never run again. I'll never swing a club. I'll never do anything. And if that was the case, I like to think that hopefully people might have tried to help me out of that. But that is a choice that you have. And I said to you, my heroes, like I've come back pretty good out of this. In fact, I fucking won the lotto, dude. With everything that's happened to me, it's like I gave a small talk with the school and class 8-year-olds, and they're trying to learn about a growth mindset. These kids are amazing, and they were discussing everything I've gone. They've been following my story. They sent me some postcards over Christmas, which was amazing. But they asked a couple of questions, and at the very end, a little girl called Lily asked me, do you believe this happened to you for a reason? And for that to come for it to have the insight to sort of think that, but that just stopped me in my tracks. And there's now I'm starting to think, maybe what's for you won't pass you by and all these sort of things, but it's caused me to have a harder look at myself, because we said we might go here, and I was saying to you that people have sort of said to me, geez, Phil, you're taking this in your stride. Oh my God, your positivity, the way you're looking at it, it's an inspiration. But what not everybody knows is a couple of years ago, I had a really bad. I've always been outgoing, as you would know. I've always been upbeat, but I had about a 7-month bout with depression, where I was changed job. I was due to be married, and it didn't happen. And I really struggled. And as I said to you, depression doesn't get solved in a week. No matter how many times you want to change your perspective and stuff like that. I believe that depression, and from speaking with psychiatrists and stuff like that, a lot of it you have to live with. You have to live through, accept it, live through it, make certain changes to eventually get through this sea of darkness that you had. Like I had a point where, for a guy who was and that was almost harder for my family to view, for a guy who's always up, always go get him, just doesn't have a drive, doesn't seem to have the energy to get out of this. So when this incident happened to me, I was able to draw on that as well. Do you know what I mean? So That's what I would say for people who are sort of listening in. Nobody gets it easy. Well, a few people do, but some of them we don't even know about. God only knows what demons they may be locking up in their closet. But if you get to, into your mid-20s, late 30s, nobody gets out unscathed, I believe. So the next thing I would say from that is, people said, where did the strength come from for me to do it? And when I look back on it now, it came from life experience. and being able to draw on stuff that went bad and use that to say, well, the sun will come up tomorrow. That's another one I love. Nothing stays the same, Steve. No matter what happened, nothing will stay the same. They would have eventually had to move me out of the mat or bed.
Yeah.
Had I not, somebody else would have had to come in and take that slot.
Yeah.
If that was 6 or 7 months down, that they would have had to, so nothing stays the same. So whether that be lash and rain or sunshine, and if you can focus on the fact that that sun will come up, okay, you're not feeling great at the moment, but it's not good. Nothing will stay the same. So you'll have to evolve and you'll have to move on from that. And it's about using your tools, I think, to help get through that, because it's weird for me to say that that bout I had with depression was harder than what I'm currently going through, because I'm going to live with this for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm going to choose to have the perspective that I have on it so that I can enjoy it.
There's an absolute connection to your point earlier, which is with every challenge comes opportunity, right? And with every time you're down, you get an opportunity to learn and to grow. And it was through those tools that you had when you were down to learn and to grow that those tools became your kind of arsenal of how to approach what you're going through now. Like for me, listening to you, Philly, I think there's a great awareness and self-awareness that you have now that you may never have had before.
100%.
Especially being able to say, do you know what, I'm having a fucking bad day here. So back off, leave me alone. I'll be grand. I'll chat to you tomorrow. Or, do you know what, I'm having a bad day. Can we talk? And ask for help, because there's strength in that, right?
It's funny you say that, because when that was said to me, out of this challenge is going to come an opportunity. I was laying in a bed, couldn't move from my chest down, and I couldn't see it. I couldn't see it. I actually thought, why did he say that now? I don't know where he's going with that point. And now, 9 months down the line, this is an opportunity tonight. I'm blessed to be allowed. This is therapeutic to share my story, to maybe, who knows who might contact me tonight or in the coming weeks, messages, moving into stuff. Philly would like you to speak here, or I've done this. I've also got a couple of mentorships set up. Somebody's going to help me a bit more with public speaking, so I'm not wrecking everyone's head when I'm hogging the mic.
No, but it's what's great about a Philly though is the you do bring energy, but there's a realness to it, and it kind of tends to lead on a little bit to I suppose there's something that I wanted to touch on as well with you, is that the page that's been put together, the Philip Caldwell Trust, right? Mm-hmm. There was a massive push before Christmas to fill Aviva for Philly, right?
Yeah.
What did that mean to you, and where did that kind of come from?
Well, there's so many bits to that story, but basically 4 guys, and they've even said it, got together, who knew me, and this is the essence of me. I was only slagging. There's a bit of a saying: once you've been Phillied, you're Phillied for life. So we were having a laugh and a joke about that. But what I'm saying is, these were 4 different people from who I'd met on the course of my travels, who then ended up getting together. One was a mate from college, one was a schoolhood friend, Andy Talon, who basically played rugby with since under 21s, and then Ian Morgan, who was the coach of the captain of the team that night, was also my rugby coach at Barnhall. And how they came together and managed to forge an idea that was able to touch so many different mediums, of whether it be on the radio, whether it be your local communities. They tapped up rugby clubs. Is there anybody in IT that may be able to get, and people? But it was a coming together of people for something. I mean, one of the most professional things I've seen, for how easy it was to set up, but they took off their time just to make sure, right, okay, Philly's going to be going at this gung-ho. We know he's going to be going at this gung-ho. we need to get together so that he can have the best team possible. And because I was very fearful, I thought when the NRH finishes, you get 3 months. That's just how it rocks, you know. You get 3 months in there. That's your Leinster Academy. Bang, five sessions a day sometimes with pool, aquatic, physio, Pilates, and you name it. They lamp it on for you to go. And I was fearful that I'm doing so well here, but what happens when I leave? What happens when I leave? What am I going to do? And you know, and there was a lot of things like, what am I not going to be able to do? How am I going to have my independence to get around? And for them to just say, don't worry about that. We've got that end of it covered. You just keep doing what you're doing. And I didn't have to worry about, and to this day, they're all still, well, everybody who donated, but I've been afforded the opportunity to get back as close as I can to 100%, as close as I can to 100%. And that never, ever leaves me. When I'm like this, I'm being worked hard in some of these sessions, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm thinking about giving up, or I'm thinking about, I'm going, that person donated 10 euros of their hard-earned cash for you to, you fucking book up and do whatever it is you need to do. But it's gone beyond me now.
Yeah.
I'm also looking further into the future to say, I'll be at the foot of the bed when some poor person is left with the scenario that I've been left with. Yeah. And I'll be able to say to him, because of this Phillip Caldwell Trust, listen, dude, this is how it's going to map out, and there'll be funds, help set aside there for you to get through it and to work to the best that you can do to get on with life.
So could you explain that a little bit more? Just what the objective now of the Phillip Caldwell Trust is, because you essentially filled Aviva, essentially, and you sold
a huge raising. But so I partnered up with the Irish Charitable Trust, the IRFU Charitable Trust as well. So they obviously had, you know, great remit with everybody within the rugby communities as well. So since leaving, I've basically had myself and Moggy have sat in, because they were so impressed with how it was run. They were looking to see, is there learnings that they could do to help with future fundraisers. So fantastic. We've partnered up with them, and when that day comes, and I'm, you know, because it will come eventually, there'll be a well done, Philly, you've put the head down, but you know, the marginal gains are getting less and less, and you've got to start thinking about getting back in and assimilating yourself back into your new normality of life. I will then look to be an avid raiser of funds for people with spinal cord injuries, and look to work with the Irish Rugby Charitable Trust to make sure that whatever surplus funds are there are helped to get that person to where they need to get, so that they can, because it is tough to, as I say, winning the lotto. There's other people who leave that NRH, they've got family, kids, and a makeshift sort of job to sort of get back, you know, that they might get, you know, somebody helps them out, you know, they get to something where they're not having to be as mobile for what it is, but they're not given what I've been given, which is 10 months to go at it, physiotherapy, and like, to tell you, Steve, I'm due to post up something now on the Charitable Trust each week. It's more every 2 weeks, but I'm making huge gains. That they're small, but they're so huge. Yeah. I mean, I was told I'd never run again. I'd never run again. That's you know, because they're that's real. The goal. That's it. They're real in the NRH. They don't want to. And I loved them for that in a way. I loved that they were honest up front and sort of said to you, listen, you got to knuckle down, do what you got to do, but don't be building yourself up for a huge fall. But I am now making very good strides. Good man. And I've spoken to a guy who had a similar injury to me, and he says, I can jog about 10 meters. And then when I get to there, I really sort of struggle. And we had a very similar injury, but I've surpassed that now, and I've still got another 10 months to go. So it's, I try not to think too much about it, because that can be a little bit overwhelming. Like another goal of mine is to swing a golf club again. I firmly, which is weird. So here's one for you, but I haven't picked up a golf club. So there's one for your listeners, right? So I am making huge gains. I'm making shoulder turns. I'm making hip turns. I'm making but something in my psyche has been too afraid to pick up a golf club and get out there and swing it just yet.
Why?
And I've gone to, I kind of said,
Where
there's
do you think where's that fear coming from? Because I
why if it
suppose,
doesn't happen. That's why, because at the moment,
say that again. Sorry, say that again.
I say it's the fear of not getting back to it. Like at the moment, I have these images, these visualization is huge in this. I have these images of me, and I had it. If you want to see me, we two of us, myself and the personal trainer, an embrace, just hugging, fucking crying when I kicked into like a run because it just felt that, and I kind of switched off, thinking I'll never get that back. And then it just kicked in, and I was like, oh God, that's it. I managed to get my thighs sort of going. Now I don't know how far we'll get onto that, but I'm definitely making great strides. So in my head, it's almost as though if I could get back to swinging a golf club and playing, maybe I'll be okay with it. Because
Okay.
it's a big thing to accept everything that's been taken away from me. Because
Yeah.
there's been a lot.
Yeah.
And in my
Yeah.
head, I'm like, oh, well, if, because you can play golf off a handicap at 20 and still be competitive and get out there. But if I lose that ability to compete and do that, that will be another thing I'll have to really, really look at. And at the moment, I have a lot going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Because
I think my brain doesn't want to pick up and think you can't do it. And
well, I think to your point earlier is like it's one thing at a time. It's the 1%. So
yes.
it's focusing on. It's not about climbing to the top of Everest now. It's about
Mhm.
taking the first step to get me on the way, to put me on
Mhm.
the track. And like you've done so much in the last 8 or 9 months that to maintain that 1% mind frame, and to
Mhm.
remind yourself,
Mhm.
right,
Mhm.
okay, 1%
Yeah,
now today,
yeah,
one
yeah,
percent,
yeah.
and then eventually, then when you get to the point when you're confident and you're happy enough with having a cut, then you'll have a cut. But focus on the 1% for now.
Mhm. But it's
Here's a
weird
question for
though.
you. Go
It
on.
is weird though how our brain protects us. I've thought a bit about this. I believe that's a little protection thing in me, and it's a demon I'm going to slay very soon. I'll be honest with you.
Good man.
It's a demon I'm going to slay very soon. But yeah, it is weird that and that's why I'd like your listeners to sort of know that, because I think that's an innate thing in all people.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? That's an innate thing in all people.
So, Philly, let me ask you something else. There's a theme that's coming across in your story so far, and that's a theme of resilience. Um, is that something that resonates with you?
Yeah, when you say it now, it does, because I'm a bit embarrassed, or not embarrassed. I'm actually proud now to say I have shown great resilience in how I've dealt with the scenario. But what I would like to stress is that the resilience, I believe, is in all of us. And it's about being able to pull that resilience out. So, what does that mean? For me, that was getting the support network around me. So, somebody said to me, you need to reframe this. This is the biggest challenge of your life, and you are physically strong. That was something I came up with. I'm physically strong. This is a physical challenge. And that led to the resilience that I had. So every morning when I wake up, when I was in the first 3 months in the matter, and I was struggling a little bit to sort of get through, I'm physically strong. When the physios come here, bang. So I showed that resilience, but I believe I have that resilience because I have the right people in place to help me be the best version of me. So at the moment, that's my physiotherapist. That's the hand guy I'm working with. That's my family support me. That's my girlfriend bringing me back down to earth when I'm talking crap. But basically, I have that inbuilt resilience in me because, as I said earlier, nobody gets out of this unscathed if you've lived for 35 years. So I've drawn on experiences, and that's what I believe a large portion of resilience is.
So, listen, like the interesting thing is I'm taking from that is in terms of resilience, right? It's actually while you're drawing on it, it's a choice that you've made, right? So it goes back to things that we spoke about before, is like everybody has a choice. Everybody has a choice to either get up in the morning and take on the day, or stay in bed, right? You have a choice. And I think through your choices that you've made, you've built up a level of resilience. Yes, you've had a great team around you, but at the end of the day, you're the person doing the job. You're the person doing the work. And with every action, you're callousing your mind, you're strengthening your body, you're building up that both mental and physical resilience framework in order to take on other challenges. And it's through those learnings then that whatever challenges come your way, you'll no doubt be able to knock them out of the park, as you say, because you're pulling from what you've learned in the past. I think it's fascinating. And what advice would you give somebody who maybe feels that, do you know what, I don't have what it takes?
Yeah. So I believe that you're wrong, and it's a weird statement to say. So you don't know until you're in the heat of the battle. So I didn't know I was going to react like I did now. My friends and family say to me, and that was kind of what lifted me up as well. I had these messages that came through from people saying, if anyone can beat this, it's you. And that lifted me an inch. I read 150 of these messages. So I didn't believe that I was resilient. I believe, because it was, like I said, I'm not going to lie to you as well, and I'll be completely honest. I lay in that bed for a full week just breathing. Nobody was allowed to come in and visit me. I think people came in for 30 minutes, and your mind can go to an awful lot of places.
Yeah.
But it took a week of that. I came back, as we were talking about earlier, into the present moment, breathing. And then I changed my perspective. And the perspective I was, this is the biggest challenge you're ever going to face. And it's a physical challenge. You are physically strong. So that's what I would say. Go into your inner monologue, find out what you're good at, what are your strengths. And even if you don't feel you are, maybe you need to talk to somebody who is, because it's just about getting this toolbox of what you need to do. So when somebody gave me that tool of, there's a perspective of this injury, you can sit there and lie in the bed and be sorry for yourself, or you can do the most you can do to try and get as good as you can get at the end of this in 18 months. And I still don't even know what that is. Yeah. I don't know if that means
still on that journey.
Ever run a 5K run. Maybe not. But I know for a fact, if I don't get up and go to all the sessions, there's no way I'll ever run a 5K run again. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So there's small things like that. Just literally talk to people now. We're lucky now. 10 years ago, you wouldn't have been able. 10 years ago, you would not have been able to have the discussion that we're having.
100%.
You wouldn't have been able, people wouldn't have been as open with it. So like I said, when you say if you're struggling a little bit, now this doesn't mean you just go branding around to anybody that you meet. Oh, I'm feeling this, that. You find somebody in your circle of trust, and maybe even in your, here's another beautiful thing, in your circle of trust, they might widen that trust to put you in touch with somebody who's even better qualified to talk around.
Yeah.
You might have 5 people, and out of that, they go, do you know what? For me, it was Stephen McIver. It was somebody that was able to, that's, if it hadn't been him, I went away to New Zealand for 2 months, and I was away on that trip with Brent Pope. He also was an unbelievable help for me at certain times, and we've discussed things, and he's been brilliant to give me a different perspective. So what I'm saying to you is, that's what I'm saying, don't give up in your core group. Yeah. Somebody knows somebody who can sit down and in today's world, it's behind closed doors, and you talk it out.
Yeah.
And bring out that resilience. Yeah.
Unreal. It leads me to a question, I suppose, is that, and I think from this conversation that people will have heard that it's like, it's probably obvious, but what's the difference between the Philly before versus the Philly now?
Wow, great question. Well, I'll answer that as honestly as I can, and because I've had time to actually, that's a great question, because I've had time to actually think about that. What's the difference between the Philly before was all action and passionate about whatever he put his mind to. All action, passionate, go, whether that be the rugby or whatever job I was in. But he was very scared. And I'm only after realizing this now. He was very fearful. He craved people's acceptability, and which he got an awful lot of the time. So that was a fear that was able to overcome. But now, so I have this. I don't know if I said it to you before. I have this kind of superpower, I feel now. So it'll never get as bad as it was when I couldn't move from the chest down. It'll never get that bad. So you've heard that saying, fuck fear and do anyway. Like, so people might live with that thing, but I have this. So I'd never given a presentation in my entire life, and I was 38 years of age. I have a first class honours in economics from UCD. I've done back office, middle office, and front office commodities trading. And I was too afraid of falling flat on my face, because I'm known for being a bit of a talker, that I never put myself out there to do that. Yeah. Fear stopped me doing that. What if you make an absolute tit of yourself? So, and people would say, public speaking, she never shut up. We can't get a word in edgeways. But that's the truth. I'd never spoken in a public forum unless it was my rugby team, because it mattered so much to me and I was well able to rally around that, or unless it's amongst my peers, because I'd fight anything to the death in any discussion. But I'd never physically sat in a forum like this, bore myself out, and let myself be able to fail. So the big difference between then and now is that nobody looks forward to the challenges, right? You still get that pit in your stomach, but I now learn to embrace that a little bit more. Embrace that fear. Fear is good. It's crippling. I remember when I gave my second talk to a group of 40 entrepreneurs, and the buzz I got once I got into this flow state that I'm now here with you, to the point where I've now realized that whatever I get involved in, be it work, needs to involve communication, because communication is what I love to do. I love to communicate. And people have to generally tell me to shut up. But that's what I love. I have a genuine passion for whatever it is I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm now learning how to get that information and relay it to people. That's something I love to do. So the difference between Philly before and Philly now, he still has the passion. I was born with that passion for whatever I'm talking about. But I now am willing to put myself out there and challenge things. Now, I'm very much a procrastinator. I would sit back and think, put it off. So I have to learn how to tackle that as well. Like, map it out. No, this is happening in 2 weeks, and you need to do A, B, C, D, and E to get to there. So
it's interesting. I think procrastination, is something that some people want to be better at, but with it kind of brings out some of the best work in people as well, because you have a deadline, right? So there's probably that balance. And there's a brilliant TED talk on procrastination. I'll send it on to you, but I'll put it in the show notes. I'll put it in the show notes as well. But it's fascinating. But I think where I think you've hit the nail on the head is that you're now tackling the fear that you may never have tackled or had to tackle before because of circumstances, but also because people want to hear your story. And people want to hear how you are, because I think there's a lot of people within the rugby community, and equally so those now who know you just through the injury, who are genuinely interested in how Philly Caldwell is. How's Flipper doing? Is he okay? And Jesus, yeah, he's been through the mill, but he's taking it head on. You're facing everything with honesty, which I think is a testament to you. And I think from that then drives people desire to find out more, to have an interest in hearing the story more and getting into the detail, and then also that taking what you're saying and applying it to their lives.
Yes, so that's the big piece. Piece. Yeah.
I love how you've been so open in this conversation, and I love the fact that you've shared things, I think, with me that it's been brilliant to see the evolution of Phillip Caldwell from absolutely the lad who'd be on the rugby pitch, barking at you, chirping at you, doing what a nine would do, or doing what a good teammate would do, and thinking that everything was sorted. All right, from an outsider, right? But
Yeah.
I know myself how difficult that is to showcase a certain level of happiness, whereas behind the scenes you're devastated, right? And
Mm.
I can understand that. But now to see you now, like I'm listening to you and I'm going, fuck it, I'd love to have you in to the guys in work and talk to the guys in work and share that story and do more, because with every conversation, a new thing will come from it, you know?
And
And
that's what I'm learning. So that's, remember I said to you, I've been afforded things that other people don't have. So this is a very finite space for me. I will eventually be going back to some form of work. You know what I mean? Once this is all, so I now have the rehab, and then so I'm actually like that Johnny Wilkinson all in every moment is something I must have. I've listened to that podcast 2 weeks ago. I must have said that in my rehab sessions about 20 times, because as you say, drifting off, not all in every moment, bang, just brings me back, focused in on that.
yeah,
So, but they're little mantras. I have a little notebook in on my iPhone, and I just pull in mantras, good mantras that I've heard to go. Some of them you'll use, some of them you won't, but there's and that's more of your toolbox.
I
Different
love that.
scenarios.
I love
Yeah,
that. I buy into that as well, because I have these affirmations that I have that I say to myself every day, and I have them on my phone there. So
yeah,
basically, I don't know if you can see that,
yeah,
but basically what it is that I'm mentally and physically strong. I am unstoppable. I am kind. I am fearless. And
yes,
these are things that I say to myself regularly, just to kind of help me when I'm having that shitty moment, or to remind me to be put back into the present. And I think it leads on to the fact that you have these different affirmations and mantras. If you had the opportunity to write a single message on a piece of paper that you could share with the world, what would that message be?
wow, that's profound. Yeah, it's not easy. I barely slept for 2 nights leading up to that first presentation. Leading up to that first presentation, barely slept for 2 nights, thinking I wanted to pull out of it about 15 times. And somebody just said to me, listen, we're going to have to crack it. Just trust me, believe in me. So what I'd say to people is, if I could leave one thing, it would be get out of your lane, and that will hopefully get you to grow a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Get out of your lane and go for that. We're in our lane, we're just driving on that motorway. Get out of it and challenge yourself to see what it is. Because what I said to you, you never lose. If you can believe that mantra, you never lose. You either win or you learn. That they're the only two things. You never lose. You either win or you learn. And if you could actually look at it and think of it like that, it might just get you to open up something. And then when it does, the possibilities after that is like a snowball effect. If I had that one, I'm rambling a little bit here, but if I had one message, it would be to get out of your lane and just challenge that, because you never lose. You either win and smash it, or you learn from what you've done.
I love that. I love that, Philly. I think you've really just you've tugged on a couple of emotional heartstrings here a little bit with me, in reminiscing on times gone by, but also just I think it's helped me kind of reassess my own situation, and it's helped me kind of reflect on where I'm going in my life and how I'm getting there, and absolutely to pick up the phone and say hello to whoever, or to let that person know that you love them, and
Yes.
or you know, just not wait for the perfect moment, because there's no perfect moment, right? There's
No.
always just that moment, and you make that moment perfect in hindsight. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think today, Philly, like I'd love us to stay in touch, obviously, and how your
100%.
progression is going. And if people wanted to reach out to you directly, how could they get in touch, Philly?
Well, it's the Phillip Caldwell Trust. Where already have a few amazing, and I love that sort of interaction that we sort of have. There's some great, I had my, I have this, remember I said to you, my hands were the last thing to come back. So I have these, what we call bionic arms. And for one of the rugby matches, I had the bionic. So we have a little bit of fun with it, along basically the progression of how I'm coming along. So for anybody, and that Phillip Caldwell Trust, there's a link still into it. So like I said, any sort of donations, like I said, we're partnered up with the Irish Charitable Trust with rugby. So it's I am going to categorically make sure that because it's not this isn't something that once I'm finished I'm going to be leaving. I'm there's been too many people have made too much of an impact. I've made a huge impact myself. I brought good focus, and I'm trying to continue to do that. But there's been too many people that have sort of set me up to. And I have to say that again, the last point I'm making is it does not go, like, I have been afforded an opportunity that not many get afforded at all, you know, and it's not lost on me about how important, and like I said, there'll come a day when and that's a scary moment, when my focus will have to change. That's something I'm a bit fearful of. Getting, what job will I end up getting back into? What will But then there's a part of me saying, no, feck it, enjoy it. You know,
exactly
the beauty of
exactly,
what I
Philly.
might not go down into. So
the opportunities you're creating now will the job and stuff will look after itself down the road. Exactly. Like you gotta, as you say, back to what Johnny Wilkins is saying, all in every moment.
Yeah.
And that's it. And like, keep saying that to yourself, because your mind will wonder. But I think, for me, I think this has been brilliant to catch up with you. First and foremost,
100%.
It's been really cool. It's nice to actually have a proper chat with you off the rugby pitch and not just shaking hands and stuff. But like,
when I'm not napping at your legs.
Yeah. But like, it's gas, because in my rugby group, I got a text message when your event happened, and when the accident happened, and when the Caldwell Trust was set up. And you can imagine the community within everybody was like, right, what do we do? How do we help? Everybody's in. And I think that spirit of sport has shone through big time, because there's an there's an unbreakable bond between people who play sport, whether it's rugby, soccer, Gaelic, whatever it is. And I think that everybody understands that when we're all in it, when one is in it, we're all in it. And I'll do what I can to help you, to share the story, to push this, to hopefully get the millions and millions of followers out there to listen to it. But whatever I can do to help, just reach out as always. And I
really appreciate it, Stephen. And I, like I said, I'm loving the work you're doing. It's very insightful, like, because that's what I would say. I'm learning from people every day. Just, taking a bit of what they do. And like I said, I'm lucky again. I have the time to just take things in.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about the next meeting at 2:00, the deadline that I have to get done. My goals are, I'm mapped out now. I'm lucky. It's mapped out now. It's hard bloody work, but it's mapped out what I need to do, day in, sort of day out. So
keep it up, man. Keep going. Brilliant. Keep hitting that pavement every day. Keep fighting. And I look forward to seeing your progress. I look forward to actually having another conversation with you again. And we'll have, when we can get our opportunity to have a cheeky beer, we'll definitely have that. But let's get you back on board in the future. We'll do this again, and we'll bring an update to how everything's going. But in the meantime, pal, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
All right, cheers, Dave. Talk to them, buddy.
Thank you all for listening. The key take from this conversation for me is to live every moment and focus on improving 1% each day. You can hear it in Philly's voice. His determination and desire to succeed is unquestionable. Follow Philly's progress on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook through the Phillip Caldwell Trust. And if you want, you can also watch this interview on the What Makes You Tick YouTube channel. For now, thank you so much for listening. Stay up to date on all future episodes by hitting the subscribe option, or if you want to find out more, visit whatmakesyoutick.net.